Welcome back. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has reviewed the presidential clemency list, reducing the numbers of those previously pardoned from 175 names down to 86. According to the presidency, the review was driven by three forces: sensitivity to victims' trauma, morale boost for law enforcement, Nigeria's international obligations. But critics say that this is damage control, a response to backlash over controversial pardons, like that of Maryam Sanda, convicted for the murder of her husband.
Well, is this a bold stand, we ask, for justice, or a calculated move to appease public outrage? This morning, we've decided to focus on this conversation like we never did before. Obviously, we did a few weeks gone by. And joining us is public affairs analyst. We have Professor Nnah here with us this morning, and we also have another very interesting and insightful public affairs analyst, Mr. Akin Bashiru. They are here with us live in the studio. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
this. Thank you, Professor Simeon. Yeah.
This is a big conversation. The first thing I just want to ask, I'm going to start off first with Mr. Abash. Did you see this coming? Did you see
all of us saw it coming. Why do I say that? I mean, when the original list came out, whether official or, through other means, of course, everybody was agitated with the content of the personalities that have been granted pardon. And there was a public outrage about that. So any sensible government, for me, would have done what had been done.
Now, Prof, do you think the federal government goofed in the first place by bringing out that extensive list? Shouldn't they have done a thorough job and, try to envisage the public's reaction before the embarrassing U-turn that they've made?
It is a no-brainer that they goofed, and that's not the first time. The handlers of the president should be more careful, more circumspect. You don't just publish a list, and at the end of the day, because of public outrage, you are now withdrawing it. Like I said, that's not the first time. Recall during the time that the military took over in Niger, the first reaction of the president was that we are going to smoke them out with the military. And when there was a public outrage, we withdrew that statement. No, we should stop that. We should be able to cross-check whatever we are dishing out to the public before it goes to the public. The rhetoric that, look, and other names were added before they were pushed out, nobody can buy that. You can tell that to my late grandmom in the village, not to me, because people would have looked at the list again before sending it to the public. You don't just tell me that some mischievous people added names before publishing it. So the media aides, what are they doing? No, what's their job? To stay at a cozy office and collect salaries and go away? No. We have to be more serious than this.
It was the same media aide that put out the statement. I mean, the SSA, Sabayo Nonuga, put out that statement and listed it down. And then also it was on the website listed. But what does this do, especially for Nigerians and for governance? Does this show that truly this passed through the scrutiny of the Attorney General of the Federation, the former presidents of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? Just talk about the entire committee. Or is it showing a different sign that these committees possibly, maybe, were not involved, they did not take active participation in reviewing this list? I'll go to you, Mr. Bash.
There is no doubt about the fact that the committee, started with the responsibility, did not do a thorough job. That's a fact. In the statement made by Bayo, he said the responsibility for compiling the list, of people who should enjoy period of mercy has been moved from the Minister of Special Duties now to the Minister of Justice. For me, it's a clear admission that the ministry that was originally served that responsibility has not done a good job. It's an admission that something definitely went wrong. And for me, taking a step to correct what the public had condemned, I think, is a hallmark of a listening leadership.
I mean, just for clarity, let's share with our audience the tweets that Bayo Nnah had put out expressly stating this. He says, President Tinubu signs instrument of clemency and pardons, moves Secretariat of Prerogative of Mercy Committee to Justice Ministry. It says President Bola Tinubu GCFR has executed the relevant instruments of release to complete the process of formally exercising his constitutional power of prerogative of mercy to grant pardon and clemency to specific individuals who were earlier convicted for various offenses. Following consultations with the Council of State and public opinion on the matter, the President directed a further review of the initially approved list for consideration in furtherance of the President's discretionary powers under Section 175, subsection 1 and 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. Consequently, certain persons convicted of serious crimes such as kidnapping, drug-related offenses, human trafficking, fraud, unlawful possession of firearms, arms dealing, etc. were deleted from the list. Others who had been hitherto pardoned in the old list had their sentences commuted. This action became necessary in view of the seriousness and security implications of some of the offenses, the need to be sensitive to the feelings of the victims of the crimes and society in general, the need to boost the morale of law enforcement agencies and adhere to bilateral obligations, the concept of justice as a three-way traffic for the accused, the victim, and the state/society also guided the review. The approved list of eligible beneficiaries has been transmitted to the Nigerian Correctional Service for implementation in line with the duly signed instruments of release. Furthermore, to ensure that future exercises meet public expectations and best practices, the President has directed the immediate relocation of the Secretariat of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy from the Federal Ministry of Special Duties to the Federal Ministry of Justice. President Tinubu also directed the Attorney General of the Federation to issue appropriate guidelines for the exercise of the power of prerogative of mercy, which includes compulsory consultation with relevant prosecuting agencies. This will ensure that only persons who fully meet the stipulated legal and procedural requirements will henceforth benefit from the issuance of instruments of release. The President appreciated the constructive feedback and engagement from stakeholders and the general public on this matter. President Tinubu also reaffirmed his administration's broader commitment to judicial reforms and improving the administration of justice in Nigeria, signed by Nnah, Special Advisor to the President, Information and Strategy. Professor Simeon, let's start with you, Professor Nnah. I have two questions. But my first question would be, there have been reactions to this statement put out by Nnah.
Yeah.
There are those who say, well done, Mr. President, you're listening. I think both of you fundamentally agree that the presidency goofed in how this was carried out. They could have done better, they could have done their due diligence, and everybody can see that. Now they've put out a corrective, what seems like a corrective step. But there's also pushback. People who are saying, if you genuinely believed that you did a thorough job, because from the initial arguments, the presidency was saying they reviewed the list, they just have a final step to make. That if you know you believed in your process, why didn't you stand by it? So there are those who are criticizing the president, saying that this list is indicative of someone who is tossed here and there and not being firm in their own process. Do you think that this list or this press release adequately captures what will seem like accountability on the part of the presidency? That's the first part of my question. When you're done with that, I'll ask Mr. Akin my second question.
Okay, you don't progress in error. So having retracted that is a plus. But however, the forth and back is one too many. Recall that when national honors were, posthumous national honors were given, there were discrepancies. We can't continue this way now. The president cannot be going forth and back. And hates are not rolling. That's the issue. Such things in other clans, hates must roll. The people that are making the president look bad, their hate should roll. But at the end of the day, we just speak grammar and everything. If you look at what Nnah put out there are most of the things people were complaining about, like the military, the EFCC, the NDLA, that they cannot be doing jobs, and at the end of the day, you rubbish it by releasing people. That's exactly what they captured. So at least they should have thought of this before now. Must they always wait for people to react before they go back to the drawing board to do the right thing? The right thing always must not just be done, must be seen to be done, always.
But do you consider this the right thing?
Well, it's the right thing to do. Okay. It's the right thing to do.
The second part of my question to Mr. Akin, a person who has generated a lot of controversy. She's one of the people who whose name, was on everybody's lips after this was announced. That's Maryam Sanda, who was sentenced to death by hanging in 2020 for killing her husband. After this, initially, her name appeared on the list. She was to be granted a presidential pardon. But now that it's been reviewed, her sentence has now been reduced to 12 years. I think she's already served 6 years. And the Attorney General, in explaining why, they said that she was granted this based on compassionate grounds in the best interest of the children, good conduct, embrace new lifestyle, model to prisoners, and remorsefulness. And people are saying, if in this press release that Bayo Onanuga gave, he's saying that certain hardcore criminals were removed from that list, like those who had drug offenses, kidnappers, and the likes, that maybe reducing hers to 12 years wasn't fitting, because will that mean justice for the person whose life cannot be, returned to him? He's lost his life, his family have lost a family member. So do you think that the government was being fair in how Maryam Sanda's issue was handled as well?
Yeah, thank you so much. Maryam Sanda was granted pardon after a lot of criticisms that were justifiable. Her sentence has now been commuted. But in the first instance, we need to acquaint ourselves, with what the Constitution says about prerogative of mercy, what purposes, is it supposed to serve, and what are the considerations, what are the, the types of pardon that is expected. If you look at it, this falls within that. I mean, the president can pardon anybody on compassionate grounds. Fine, quite unfortunate that this woman killed the husband, but don't also forget that, there are children from this union. So even from the explanation of the presidency, I think it's sensible. Okay, in the first place, somebody has committed a crime. Some form of penalty, have been applied. Do you get that? So the question now is, rather than leave this person to serve a life imprisonment and commuting, that's just the language, commuting the sentence from death sentence to a number of years for particular reasons, most especially the family, the children that have come up through this union, I think it's sensible.
Now, Prof, just taking a bird's eye view of everything we've discussed and what we've witnessed so far, one can deduce and say that, and ask the question that do these reversals, because you've always been angry with the policy somersaults and reversals that we've seen in this administration, and you said their heads should roll. So do such reversals strengthen public confidence in the rule of law, or do they erode it by suggesting that, we're operating a governance by trial and error? And the second leg of my question is there a deeper ethical crisis when justice becomes reactive, responding to the noise of public anger rather than, due process that should have taken place in the first place? So you have the reactive part, and you also have governance by trial and error.
Well, you invariably answered your own questions. Government doing things by trial and error is a no-no for me. It's a no-no. Like I said...
No, they wouldn't say that. They would say, they're responding to the yearnings of the public.
See. If
responsive and a listening government.
If it is a one-off, it could be taken. But if it's a consistent occurrence, it's a no-no. It's a no-no. The government should always scrutinize whatever is sending to the public. Don't just try and maybe test the waters. And when there's a reaction, you now go back to the drawing board to do the needful that they're supposed to do. In governance, I'm a professor of leadership. You brainstorm for such issues and look at the pros and cons before you come out with a policy. You don't just have a brainwave and you go to the public and say that's a policy. Then when there's a pushback, you start the forth and back that they are doing. No. You don't govern by trial and error. You are not a mechanic for crying out loud. Even today, mechanic, they have, this is they used to test and show exactly. In those days, mechanic do trial and error. That's what this government is doing. They try something is not working, they pull it back and start trying another one. No, people should not be governed that way. Government should put its feet on the ground, come out with a policy that they know this is the way to go.
But the truth is, regardless of what the policy is that the government puts out, there will still be people who will find fault and criticize.
No.
See it maybe as, yes, in some measure, I completely agree with you that the government needs to cross its T's and dot its I's before putting out certain policies. But also that the government is listening to the people, and when the people push back, the government sees that as a collective response and then acts on that.
No. Let me address that. You know, Erofai did say when he was in APC that even if a government have done something that is good 100%, that they will say it has not done anything, it is a duty of that government to come and prove that they have done something. What we are saying here is not that policies of government will not be criticized. What we are saying is that it should not be that they will always put in the wrong foot. They are putting the wrong foot. It's not about criticism here. They are doing the wrong thing always. And when people now react, they go back to do the right thing. No, that's the right thing must be done and must be seen to be done always. So if people now criticize, well, it's normal. The opposition will always criticize, and it will be taken as just criticism, normal criticism. But a situation where, you know, these things come and you see people shout, and those things people are talking about is the thing they go back to do. Meaning that in the first instance, what they did was wrong. If you have done the right thing and people are criticizing, you stick to your gun.
Okay. We've talked about what they've done. We've seen that they've rescinded, and then people have now, whether we like it or not, Nigerians will, in the usual term, will adjust. Because some people feel that, okay, there's victory now because the government has eventually listened. And like Olive rightly said, it's also a good thing if you look at it from the government's aspect that, oh, we made a mistake. However, many still feel that words like clearly stating that they take the blame for such works. But Mr. Bash, I want us to look at public perception. It's very key, and how it could impact on the All Progressives Congress. This is not just the first. We recall what happened concerning NTA and the DG. There was an announcement, and people jubilated, they celebrated. NTA has a new DG.
And Director of News.
Director of News. There was also the issue of Dubai. You know, Dubai and so on and so forth. How can public perception handle, or how can APC ensure that they manage their communication in a way that it doesn't in any way affect public perception of the party, especially now that we're going into 2027?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think we need to mix it up. Leave APC out.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And leave the government. I mean, we're talking about governance now. And in today's government, you have people from different parties as government officials. So let's leave the party. Prof was talking about leadership. And I'm sure he's going to agree with me. There is nothing sacrosanct about leadership. There are types of leaders, and there is nobody who will tell us that he's a perfect leader. So in administration, there are bound to be discrepancies. But how minimal is the question? That somebody is a leader and he must get it right at every point. No. He equally knows that even in leadership, you test waters. It depends on what you want to achieve. You understand? So let's leave that. I don't want to agree that the present leadership continues to falter. No. Now, on the issue of perception. Perception, of course, majorly is to be seen from who is perceiving what. Beauty, they say, is in the eye of the beholder, right? But of course, there are also situations where people's perception about terribly taking decisions, matter. So it is important, I want to agree, that as much as possible, to the extent, of what is permissible as a human being, you want to be diligent, you want to cross the T's, you want to dot your I's, you want to subject your decision to what they call in-house tests. I remember when Tantalizer was to come into being, I was part of it. We had so many names, over 100 names to consider. And they got a point, said, fine, before you think or take final decision based on those of us who are within the creative studio, no, let's take it out there and test people's view on a fast food outlet coming in when there are other fast food outlets have already been in existence. So we went to people who you know that by their profile, you know, they want to go into fast food. What am I saying here? That the government should, as much as possible, create, you know, relevant steps to put into test whatever policies they're coming out with, whatever decisions, you know, they're coming out with. But of course, you must equally recognize, you know, the challenge of even leadership. Leadership that you are talking about here is not a leadership at the topmost level. At every strung of the ladder, there is always a leadership. You understand? And at that level, some decisions are equally taken that are not properly taken to the highest level. But in the case that we're talking about here, there's no excuse, honestly speaking, you know, because this is something that is of interest to the public, and to a very large extent, you must be diligent, you must scrutinize this before bringing it to the public. But thank God that after the backlash, the government has realized that, sorry, I mean, some wrong steps have been taken. And like I said earlier, I mean, he will also agree that leadership is all about, okay, I mean, this policy has not worked for us. Let's bring it back. How do we ensure that it does work? So for me, this decision has given a lot of confidence, you know, to the public that the government of the day is a listening government. And that when issues of critical interest are pointed out, then they don't have any excuse, you know, other than to, you know, retract it and do what is will be more acceptable.
All right.
Can I say something?
Yes, please go ahead.
Now, let me correct an impression. When you want to test the waters, you don't go to the general public to test the waters. That's what we call random sampling in research. You sample some people and you test that policy with them, and they'll give you a feedback. You can even send questionnaires. They'll give you a feedback. From the feedback, you know what kind of policy you are going to do. So our problem, like you rightly said, we agree that what the president did now by retracting and, you know, trying to look at the issues again is okay. But the problem is the consistency. I agree with you that leadership is not sacrosanct. It's not casting gold. But the truth is, when you keep on faltering, it is very, very wrong. It is unlike a good leader for you to keep on going forth and back. They mentioned some issues. They have forgotten the issue in Brazil, where the president went and said something, and they say, you know, in PR, once they say something, the handlers will come and micromanage it. They are quoted out of context. Recall that's what Shore was sent to, because Shore said what the president said. They said, no, he didn't say it right. But so we are not kids now. We listen to the president. We heard what the president said. So people that are handling the president should be more careful. That's what we're saying here. They should be more careful. And president himself must always concern himself with written addresses. Because we discovered that some of these things are when he now veers off the material. For instance, the first speech he made, subsidy gone, was not in the paper that he was given.
Does it have to be there?
No.
It doesn't have to.
It
doesn't have to be there.
You see, that's where some of these things are coming from.
It does not.
Because the handlers have seen what they want him to present. He would have discussed that with them, and they put it in the script. So if he doesn't want their script, then what is the need? You know, Obasanjo said something when he was the head of state. He said, when he appointed advisors, he said, keep your advice to yourself. If you pester me with your advice, I will send you away. He forgot rather, that advice is a second opinion. So some of them don't have that. Because if you know that advice is a second opinion, it means that you must have your own opinion before somebody is advising you. So the advice, it does not mean that you must take that advice. So him coming to tell people that people should not advise him is very, very wrong. So what we are saying here is that the president should concern himself, because of this forth and back, with scripts that are written for him. If he wants any idea, what he will do is to discuss it with his handlers so that they put it in the script, so that he will not veer off what he wants to say. Because in most cases, you see that when he veers off like that, there will be one error or the other, and you'll start blaming the people that are handling him.
Okay. Anyway, I think that's even, I don't think that's the issue we're really talking about here. And you see, a leader in the first place must have the quality, must have that thing, you know, ahead and more than even the followers.
Of course.
So a leader at some point will take some decisions based on his own understanding of it. If as I said, subsidy is gone, whether it was in the speech or not, all of us, we knew that subsidy was gone before it came in. Because if the budget for subsidy ended in June, which the federal government made so much noise about, has subsidy not gone. And recently, Emma of Kano said something. He said, what we are suffering today is because the time we ought to have taken this on subsidy, we didn't take that decision. So if a president came and said, subsidy is gone, if he had subjected himself to this advice you are talking about, subsidy wouldn't have gone. No. So a leader at some point,
that's also a dicey angle to look at, because it was the same president who had stopped the subsidy from being removed.
What you said now was not exactly what he said.
I think
what did he say?
No. What he said was that if we had allowed subsidy to go during the Jonathan era, there would have been pains, but the pain will not be as much as it is now.
So what did I say? That's not from that.
What you said?
I said, Sanusi said, what we are suffering is because we didn't take decision on subsidy long ago.
But that decision couldn't have been taken because the people who are advocating for subsidy to be removed now were those who stood.
That is where that is where the issue of leadership comes in. A leader must be courageous. A leader must be able to take decisions. Would you want to tell me? Just 1 minute. Do you want to tell me that there were no criticism that subsidy should not go and all that? You know, a leader will have backtracked on that. A leader must be courageous. You must believe. You must have a knowledge far above those people.
Given the luxury of hindsight,
just gone ahead. No matter what you
should have taken against those protesters.
Were there no decisions taken by Jonathan, even when people protested against it? So you as a leader, you must have an idea of what you think is better.
I mean, so I don't think that.
Sorry, if Professor said an advice is a second opinion, it means the primary opinion is the opinion of who is the leader.
Of course.
So I don't think that people don't disagree that subsidy should be removed. From majority of the arguments,
the timing,
I think the things that we've heard, and even from judging from the interviews we've heard here, is one, people who argue that maybe sometimes not about what you say, but how you say it. It was the first introduction into presidency, and it was a bit of a shock. And the word of the president, the word of the king carries power. So in that moment, it impacted the market. Secondly, that maybe it could have been done in tranches because it affected the economy in such a way that no matter how good your intentions are, you must always, the government must always have a face of the people. That could have been implemented in tranches. So I think these are some of the major arguments that we've heard regarding subsidy. But this conversation isn't about subsidy. It's about the clemency, the presidency revisiting that list. And when we had a representative of the presidency here on the show, Mr. Tokpe, I forgot his name, Mr. Tokpe Ajayi, and we asked him if the president saw the list. My colleague asked him.
And he got really angry.
He got defensive and got upset by that.
So
he said it was a silly question. That the president, how can we ask if the president saw the list? And my response to that was, he's a president for a reason. He can't see every single thing. He has ministers, he has members of his cabinet to be able to carry several other oversight functions because he cannot see to every single thing. So the question would then be, on whose shoulder does the responsibility lie or the blame lie? Yes, he has come to fix it now, but there was a problem caused in the first instance. So who do we hold accountable for this?
The person to be held accountable is the presidency, and the presidency has accepted that by coming presidency.
The
presidency is the office with all the people around him, not just the presidency.
There are other agencies that are in the presidency.
All his
I was at a point, a board member of the National Bureau of Statistics, and the NBS is also part of the presidency. So it's a large entity. You understand, and that is why at every point, some people take decisions, in their various agencies and all that, and at the end of the day is the presidency. But that the president has been able to come back, sensitive to the public, I think we should give it to them. And of course, like we have all advised, let us be more diligent, when policies are being churned out.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Very interesting conversation.
Insights has been really, helpful in this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Next, we'll be looking at the informal sector as we're inching towards making Nigeria into a $1 trillion economy.
By 2030,
by
we're almost there.
2030, yes, we're almost there. We have a few more years. We're looking at a very important sector that will be a huge contributing factor, the informal economy. And there's a report that has been released. We're going to be breaking down the impact of this report, what it means, where we are at, and what it will take to achieve that $1 trillion economy by 2030. Stick around.